Okay, in this video it is about classification. So what is classification? Classification, it simply means putting the objects or any similar looking kind of objects, whether it is living things or non-living things, into groups, or we can say it is grouping. But how do we make this group? We make groups on the basis of the similarities. Okay, so the objects which have similar structure, or they have similar characteristics, or they behave the same way, or they look the same way, we simply put it into groups. So in science we are going to learn about classification of plants and animals. So in plants and animals also, since we know that there are many different kinds of plants and animals all around the world, we cannot say that all of them are same. So how to name them, how to recognize them? There are millions and millions of them, and we cannot name each and every one. Okay, so it will be easier if we put it into groups and we can label them for easy identification. So classification means all living beings are divided into certain groups according to their morphological and anatomical structures. Depending upon how they look externally and how they look internally, they are put into groups. Okay, so this grouping system is known as classification. So why is classification necessary? There are about millions of species of living beings in the environment. So giving an individual name to each one, it is impossible to identify. So for easy identification, study and for understanding of living things, they are put into groups or classified. So it basically says that in the world there are millions and billions. Okay, some they are still not discovered. They are still existing. Millions of plants, millions types of animals, they are there in the earth, but most of them, they have not been discovered. So how will we know what are the characteristics, what are the habitat, what do they eat, or how do they grow, or what is the life cycle? So how will we identify them? If we put these similar looking kind of animals or plants into a group, then we can say that, oh, this plant, it has similar characteristic to group A, so they can fall under group A. Okay, so for easy identification, we can say that these plants and animals, they have to be classified. They are on the basis of the external and internal structure. On broad basis, they are classified into broader groups, and as they have similarities, it is again classified further. So one simple classification is not enough. You can understand classification just like in school. Okay, just like class 2 students, example, they are all put into a same room, okay, in which all class 2 students are there. Now in class 2 also, if I want to say I want to have students who are good performers, who are average performers, and who are weak performers, so how do we do? Out of those, out of all the students in class 2, again we make different groups depending upon their performance. Okay, and so it will be like that in classification also. So that means there may be level 1 classification. Under that classification, again the group of plants and animals, again they may be classified. So let us come first thing into classification. Classification, for now we are studying the 5 kingdom classification. That means all the living organisms, whether it is plant or animals, they are classified into 5 groups or 5 kingdoms that we call. The person who founded this type of classification, his name is Robert Whittaker. He was the founder of 5 kingdom classification. So what are those 5 kingdom classification? Let us see. See here, like I have made some I have made a chart in which I have shown you, I am showing you the 5 groups. Number 1, Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and then we have the Animalia. Now these M, P, F, P and A. M for Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Now we have arranged this classification according to their how advanced they are. That means Monera, it is the least advanced of living organisms. Okay, now remember, this is all organism, living organism. So in these 5 classifications, in these 5 kingdoms, we have animals, we have plants, we have those which are neither animals or plants. Okay, so let us say Monera. Under Monera, what comes? What are the organisms that comes, or what are the living organisms that comes? Some examples of Monera are bacteria, example Archaeobacteria and Cyanobacteria. So all the bacteria, it comes under Monera. They are not animals. Okay, remember, bacteria are not animals, these are organisms. That means these are living things and they come under Monera. So what are the properties? Monera, these are most primitive. Primitive भनेको संसारमा सबभन्दा पहिलो पाइने, ओके, सबभन्दा ओल्डेस्ट फाउन्ड organisms. They are most primitive, microscopic, एकदम सानो. They are unicellular, एउटा सिंगल सेलले बनेको हुन्छ. तिनीहरू एउटा एन्टायर बडी एउटा सेलले मात्रै बनेको हुन्छ अनि तिनीहरूकोमा न्युक्लियस हुँदैन. So these are the properties of Monera. Most primitive, microscopic, unicellular, and they do not have any nucleus. Now going on to the next one, that is Protista. Protista ma कस्तो खालेको organisms पाइन्छ? Amoeba, Paramecium, Euglena, these are the examples of some Protista. Amoeba, Paramecium and Euglena. The properties of Protista are, these are eukaryotic. Now eukaryotic cells, we have done in our junior classes, eukaryotic cells are those cells which have a membrane bound cell organelle. That means in their cell, the different cell organelles ko oripari pani ke huncha? Membrane huncha. So Protista, all the organisms that fall under Protista, they have eukaryotic cell. They have locomotive feature, that means they can move about, whether with their, they don't have proper hands and legs, that is for animals, but these, they have some kind of body structure which will help them to move, either it is a tail or it is a fiber or something like that. Now all the organisms under Protista, they are still unicellular. Inaru multicellular hudana, inaru sabai ajai pani unicellular huncha. That means one body, one amoeba, how many cells it has in its body? It has only one cell. In the same type, Paramecium, in the entire body there is only one cell. Now about their nutrition, all the Protista, these are autotrophic. Autotrophic means some of the Protista can make, these are autotrophic, they can make their own food. Some Protista are heterotrophic, that means they depend on others for their food. Okay, so either they can make their own food or they have to depend for some other organisms for their nutrition. Now the third one is the fungi. Third kingdom is the fungi. Under fungi what comes? Yeast, mushroom, mold, these are examples of fungi. Yeast, mushroom and molds, these are some examples of fungi. These are unicellular or they are multicellular. Some yeast are unicellular and some of the fungi are multicellular. These are saprophytic, that means they cannot make their own food, but they have to depend on dead or decaying matter for the food. They have to take the nutrition from some other dead or decaying organic matter. The body of fungi, it has a thallus body, okay, it has a spongy body. All the organisms which comes under fungi, it will have a thallus or a spongy kind of body. All the organisms under fungi kingdom, they do not have chloroplast, they will have no green color, and they store they've stored their food in the form of glycogen. Okay, they store the food in the form of glycogen. So this is the these are the properties of fungi. Now for the fourth one, the fourth kingdom is Plantae. All the plants, okay, all the plants, whether it is a small plant or it is a tree or it is a bush, anything, all plants which are autotrophic, which can make their own food, all these comes under Plantae. Flowering plant, non-flowering plants, seed-bearing plants, non-seed-bearing plants, fruitless plants, everything it comes under Plantae kingdom. Plantae, these are all multicellular, these are all autotrophs. All the plants, they have a cell wall. All the plants, they store the food in the form of starch. The plants, it can be gymnosperm or they can be angiosperm. Gymnosperm or angiosperm means some plants will have naked, some plants will have flowers, some plants they will not have flowers. Okay, so these are the properties of Plantae. The fifth kingdom is the Animalia. Animalia, all the organisms, all the insects, all the humans or the horses or the organisms that lives in the water, fishes, or those that can fly, example birds, or those that can crawl, all the organisms, multicellular organisms, they all come under Animalia. Now the properties of Animalia are, all the organisms under Animalia, they are multicellular, they are heterotrophic, they cannot make their own food, they have to get their nutrition from some other organism. The organisms, they can either be aquatic, they can live in the water, or they can be terrestrial, that means living in land. They all have cell membrane. All the organisms that comes under the Animalia kingdom, they will have a cell membrane. They do not have cell wall. Cell wall who has? Plantae kingdom. Some of the organisms under Animalia, they are vertebrates, while the others are invertebrates. That means they may not have backbone, they may have backbone. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the 5 kingdom. So these are the characteristics of the 5 kingdom, which was founded by Robert Whittaker. So this much for today. Thank you.